This is Radio TV Phono Nut, and today, for your pleasure and enjoyment, we have a Sonora AM radio phonograph combination. This is just a 5-tube series string radio with a record player attached to it from about 1947 or so. Originally, this had a 78 RPM only record player in it, but somebody modified it probably back in the 60s, maybe 50s, to play all 3 speeds. No, make that all 4 speeds: 16, 33, 45, and 78. You can see here we have our switches for motor off and on and radio phono. Now, back then you could buy from various electronic parts places, you could buy a phono motor kit that consisted of the drive motor and turntable platter for a few dollars, and you could buy a tone arm and cartridge for a few dollars and either build your own record player or convert an existing 78 only model to play 3 or 4 speeds. This was probably done for a kid. You know, somebody probably had this old 78 thing just laying around, and they figured, well, you know, rather than go out and spend money on a new radio phonograph combination for the kid, I'll just take the old one that's been sitting in the closet for 10 years and I'll modify it to play all 4 speeds, and the kid will be happy. Alright, let's get it apart and see what we got to work with. Now, some radio record player combinations are pretty easy to get apart and work on because everything plugs in, as in the turntable motor and the tone arm, but not this one. This one's a bit difficult. Everything's soldered together, and also on the better models, the radio phono switch is usually on the chassis, but once again, not on this one. All of that is mounted to the motor board, so we had to take all of that loose, and now our motor is permanently attached to the chassis, so we're going to have to undo that, as is the pickup leads. And unless I can turn this chassis at an angle to get it out, I might even have to remove the turntable mechanism because the motor's in the way. And yes, I had to remove the drive mechanism in order to get the chassis out. Looks like an Alliance mechanism, or an Alliance clone anyway, and yes, it's going to need a full overhaul, including grommet replacement and the whole 9 yards. So yeah, this one I pretty much had to go all the way with it in order to get it apart. Alright, here's the chassis. Standard 5-tube lineup, I presume. Very dirty, which is to be expected. Very loose tube sockets. Oh, Pranula. So yeah, this one might need a lot of work. This is probably a high hour set. And you can tell this chassis was originally punched for the standard size octal sockets, because you can see the plate they have riveted here on each tube socket. Underside of the chassis looks pretty spacious. It don't look like it'd be too bad of a booger bear to work on. As far as repairs, I can tell this Planet filter capacitor is a replacement. And this green Cornell Doublier capacitor is a replacement. Alright, that green cap is the plate-to-grid coupling cap for the audio output tube, and it's probably still good. This Planet cap, I'm betting, is bad. These are both from the 60s, maybe even early 70s. I've seen some equipment that from the 70s that had those green Cornell Doublier capacitors in them, so yeah. In light of that, this thing was probably overhauled or shall I say modified and repaired sometime in the mid to late 60s, I'd say. Okay, we have our across-the-line capacitor disconnected because we don't want it to short, which it's bad about doing, and possibly blowing up or shorting out and burning up a rectifier tube and a dial lamp needlessly. So now we can fire it up and see what happens. I bet it'll hum like a son of a gun. I'm running it at about 60 volts input, no filter hum, but plenty of this. volume control is very crustified and funked up. Let me get some cleaner and spray that. And you might know this would be one of those sealed volume controls like the pre-World War II controls were. Of course, right after the war ended, it wasn't uncommon for companies to buy up surplus parts that they could get for little or nothing to build these things. You know, even back then, anything to cut costs. I managed to get some juice in the volume control, and that took care of the squealing, but these sockets are in bad shape. I even cleaned the rectifier socket and still had to wiggle the tube before it would make contact. One thing I can try before I replace sockets is stick a small screwdriver down in from the top and try to retension the contacts, but
help fuel better is provided over cart kits.
Is it still a ladder for you if this thing continues to...
As far as all of our coils and transformers, we know all of that's good, so that's a plus. But this is what I mean as far as retensioning the sockets, is to stick a very small screwdriver down on each side of the pin and kind of push the contacts back together, and maybe they'll make better contact with the tube pins, at least for a little while anyway, because in all honesty, it really wouldn't be worth it to go through this thing and replace all of the tube sockets. Yeah, even after working on those contacts, these sockets are still not in good shape. In fact, I had to wiggle the audio output tube to get the filament connection to make, so I don't know what's going to happen to this thing.
Closing the divergent street, so we're doing well there. Okay. The only thing is,
bring the line voltage up to full and see what blows up.
And ever since I started, got gazelle intense, just fired.
I mean, the radio seems to work pretty good, except the sockets are shot.
Been pumped. She's been panicked.
Covered that.
And I can tell the alignment is off because our peak is coming in at about 4:30, about 4:36, 4:37 instead of 4:55. So let's work on these IF trimmers and see what we can do. Cut the generator down and do it again. And I'm not going to show that because this battery's about to die. Alright, we're aligned now. What station is this? Bumper music for a talk program. Should have known.
Our station apps.
Just say, hey Alexa, play News Radio 1200 WOAI. That's work. Active on my social media.
WSM barely coming in at about 650, so I guess I got it pretty good. Alright, this AC noise suppression cap is a bit different. One side connects to the AC line and the other side connects to the cathode of the rectifier tube. And here's a resistor, a surge current limiting resistor between the cathode and the first filter capacitor. I don't know what it's supposed to be. It reads 39 ohms. It looks very well cooked, so I'm going to go look at the schematic and just see out of curiosity. Now this is why I don't like miniature tubes. Number one, you got a smaller tube in a smaller package doing the same thing that an octal tube previously did. And what that means is more heat generated. You have smaller pins on the miniature tube, which means when they get old and crusty, that they don't make as good a connection. You don't have that problem much with octal tubes. You have a smaller, cheaper tube socket, and because of the excess generated heat from the smaller tubes, you have the heating and cooling and heating and cooling, and of course the more you use the set, the more that heating and cooling process is going to take place, and that heat is just going to get transferred to the tube socket terminals and the tube socket housing itself, and after 1,000,000 hours, the tube socket is either just going to crumble apart on you, or the terminals are going to get so loose from all the heating and cooling cycles, they're just not going to make contact anymore. And looking at this, it looks like this bypass capacitor for the audio output tube has been changed, but with a waxy. Our plate to grid coupling cap for the output tube has definitely been changed, and I'm going to leave that. Filter capacitor has been changed and seems to be good. I'm probably going to leave that. This is a solar seal tight. It's our volume control coupling capacitor. Probably going to leave that one alone. Here's another solar seal tight. It's the AVC bypass or AVC filter cap. Probably going to leave that one alone. This is our chassis isolation cap. Probably would be a good idea to change that. And this is a capacitor here that connects between phonoground and the chassis itself. You know, might want to go ahead and get rid of that. So, probably change this one, and this plate bypass cap. The rest of them I'm probably just going to leave alone, because I'm just, given the condition of the tube sockets, I'm just really not too motivated to just go hog wild on this thing. Get it working reasonably well and do whatever with it. Okay, this surge current limiting resistor was a 33 ohm, and it had gone up slightly, but not enough to get hot and bothered about. But since it was kind of cooked, I went ahead and replaced it with a new 33 ohm flame-proof resistor. Here's the plate to grid coupling cap for the audio output stage. It's a replacement, but this replacement has already blown out its end, as you can see there, so we'll go ahead and replace that with a 0.02 microfarad cap. And since this is a resurrection, we're going to go through our stash of caps that were pulled off of old TV boards and such. Now we'll break away to do a couple of unboxings. And these are supposed to be 4 small table radios in 2 big boxes that were bought off of eBay. They were poorly photographed, and as a result didn't go for much. Sometimes I found that when something's poorly photographed, you'll get a pleasant surprise, and other times I'll find out that they were trying to hide something, but we didn't pay much for these, so let's open it up and see what we got. And here's box number 1. It looks like everything is double boxed inside box number 1. They had all this bubble wrap rammed down in there. Alright, more bubble wrap. Let me get this out of here without packing peanuts going everywhere. This is a little Arvin table radio. On the exterior, it looks to be in pretty good shape, except for one little bobo right here. See what's in the back. 6-tube series string set, so looks to be from the early 40s, I'd say. Alright, here's radio number 2. Now, let me make an observation. Even though they obviously went to some effort, they probably should have gone to a little more effort and put more padding material in the sides here to keep the radios from moving around in the boxes like this. But at least we are getting better. Number 2 is a Majestic Mighty Monarch of the Air. its cabinet is in a little worse shape than the other one, but it can be fixed. And this is a 5-tube set with a power transformer, so this one should be worth restoring. Alright, what's this? A power cord and an envelope that I'm sure the cord was in and it fell out during shipping. Okay. Yeah, the only thing they could have done better was to pack these sides better so the stuff wouldn't move around. And number 3 is a Temple from about 1946. It's just a 5-tube superhet. Cabinet's in pretty good shape. Back cover is present. I can tell someone's worked on it because of this modern polarized cord that's on it. Not that cord, this cord. We know that ain't from 1946. And last we have this little guy. It's going to need some work, and the speaker grill needs some help, big time. I don't know what brand it is. You can see the 2 little holes under the speaker grill where the name badge would have been. But I have an idea this was made by either Air King or Warwick and sold under many brand names. This is just a typical 4-tube plus the ballast tube TRF set from the mid-30s, your typical Depression-era radio. We fixed a few similar to this in recent videos, so yeah, these will give us some future projects to work on. Oh good, it looks like they taped the broken out speaker grill bar to the top of the radio, so that'll make things a lot easier. Here's the Arvin. As you can tell, someone has already recapped it, at least the paper ones anyway. Okay, 6-tube chassis. Filter cap looks original. This may be one of those sets where they replaced all the paper capacitors, and when it still didn't play, they didn't know what to do with it, so it just got sold off. Or it might play. I guess we'll find out eventually. Here's the Temple, just a 5-tube superhet. Alright, let's flip it over and see what we got underneath. Okay, this one here has not been recapped, but the power cord has been replaced. Alright, here's the Majestic 5-tube set with a power transformer, probably late 30s, early 40s. Let's flip it up and see what's been done to it, if anything. And it also looks like it hasn't been touched recently. And here's the last one that we don't know what brand it is. Also looks to not have been touched, at least not in recent years. Here's the top side. I'm thinking this may be either an Air King or a Warwick built set. Here's the cover off the ballast tube. It has a broken element in it. So yeah, we'll just have to replace that with something. And this is the deluxe model. It has a dial light that so many of these cheapies didn't have. And yeah, about 3 out of the 4 cabinets of the radios that I just showed you are going to have a date with my wood glue and my wood clamps. But these should be some fun little projects for down the road.
Purdy's Discount Wine and Liquor has helped you celebrate for more.
Alright, here's the Sonora, about as resurrected as it's going to get for now. I'm not going to work on the phonograph part right now. I just wanted to get the radio working.
For birthdays, weddings, anytime friends gather.
And it could stand a better speaker, but I'm not gonna deal with that right now either.
Purdy's, lifting spirits for generations.
Meridian Cleaners, located on 22nd Avenue, right across the street from the main post office here in downtown Meridian, has hours that are convenient for you. Monday through Friday, 7 to...
Remember the moment? I'll never forget that moment. As long as I live. Several of us. Beginning at 8:30 on 95.5 WSB. Are you thinking about selling your... Used to have... must be warned of the risk of contracting the coronavirus while in the hospital. Ohio had 392 new total cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours.
Probably WLW.
Now exceed 14,100. Governor Andy Beshear
Where's our WSM? Are they wanting to be bashful tonight? Maybe that's them. Yeah, we've got thunderstorms and such moving in, so that might have some effect on this.
Help you. What you think do with a 20 turnover on deck and kind of...
Meridian.
More of a free spirit, and on top of that, I love to spend money.
And there's a lot of times where people say, I don't have to worry about my sin. It's covered under grace. Yes, your sin is covered by the blood of Jesus once you repent of it. Absolutely. But you continue to sin and say it's covered by grace is literally taking a nail from the cross and slapping Christ back in the face.
Major League Baseball handed out a couple suspensions. Of coronavirus and community concern.
Yeah, we're getting some DX, but not that much tonight.
Predicting and breaking out every first round.
Welcome back to the Ben Shapiro Show, number... Years.
And I don't remember if I showed you the underside of the chassis before I cut off the last segment of this video. It's been about a week or two, but here it is again. I just did enough to get it working reasonably well, and if I were going to restore this properly, all those tube sockets would have to be replaced, and of course we'd do the usual under chassis work, but I'm just not that inclined to go that far on this, and that's probably why I'm not even going to bother fixing the record player part of it. I'm just going to put it back together and probably end up giving this to somebody. But filter cap, it's the 1960s replacement. It's still good. This Cornell Doublier coupling cap is still good. These two solar seal tight caps. One's the AVC filter, one's the coupling cap off the volume control. These two disc capacitors, replacing them won't have any impact on the performance, just to maybe make it safer. One's the isolation cap between circuit ground and chassis, and the other one isolates the cartridge ground to circuit ground, so... And then this across the line AC cap, and that's about it. Well, here we are back together. I did not connect any of the phono stuff. It's just there. Waiting on the radio to warm up now.
When it opens back up,
children are gone, starting with top healthcare provider, especially if you're they're used to advocate and transform shelter dogs into service dogs for veterans, first responders, and their families. Donating is easy. To learn more about donating your vehicle, call 844-678-4PAW. That's 844-678-4729. Or visit Woodback.
Bred in fear for roughly 10,000 years. Today's GMO technology offers a quicker, more controlled path to accomplish.
America will play everything from Gershwin, some cases, decades before the pandemic.
Yes, in origins, number 55.
Absolute rock star. It's absolutely incredible. And he took a job.
Weekly podcast. Rocket Mortgage. During the challenging times we're all experiencing, our top priority is the health and safety. More than ever.
Physical exhaustion. Playing video games.
WSM just ain't there tonight.
And need assistance with your mortgage? Contact us 24. Into this is absolutely. These municipalities impose. That's higher in the city than it is.
Alright, that's enough of this. And next we'll get to the 4 that we unpacked, although I'll give you a little bit of sad news before we get to that. The Arvin is going to get EOL'd. No, correction, the Arvin has already been EOL'd. I discovered that case that it was in was not the right one. It was a homemade cabinet. And I won't spoil the fun for you, but let's just say it just kept giving me problem after problem after problem and refused to cooperate. And I got a belly full of it, and I decided it was worth more for parts than it was for me to waste time with it. Now, had it been in the proper cabinet, I wouldn't have been so quick to scrap it out, but since it wasn't in the right cabinet, there really wasn't much need in going any further with it, so alright, I turned the cabinet and WSM decided to come in. But all that static, I think, is the approaching thunderstorm.
Winfield Jr., you mentioned the pro pedigree. His father obviously played in the NFL for a long time.
COVID-19, everything else. But people,
though, Joe, I think this is a great.
finding every way possible. There's their careening.
But this is doing pretty good, all things considered.
Driving